Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to tonight's Hui. Tonight we have the pleasure to welcome Danielle du Plooy from Wānaka to talk about the composting setup there. So take it away, Danielle. Excited to hear what's been going on.
Yeah, great. Kia ora. I'm Danielle. I have actually also asked Emma, who is with the QLDC, which is the Queenstown Lakes District Council, if she would join us tonight to answer some questions that I thought folks might have and to present a little bit sort of in collaboration to show where our project fits into the whole of what we're doing in the Queenstown Lakes District. Um, uh, so that being said, Emma's actually going to talk first and introduce the project. And yeah, Emma, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Cool. Thanks, Danielle. And yeah, hopefully you can hear me. The mute on and off always struggles on Zoom for me. So hopefully I don't put myself on mute by accident. Um, but yeah, kia ora everyone. It's really great to be here. I have actually had these network hui's in my calendar constantly, and I've never actually made it along to one. So it's nice to actually be forced to come along and in this presenting in this presenting role. But yeah, I'll probably just quick intro. Sustainability advisor is my role at QLDC. I'm actually on a parental leave cover for Kath Butter, which some of you may or may not have come across in the past. She's a bit of a sustainability superhero in our district. And yeah, she'll be due back in February, March next year. But I have been looking after that role in the interim, and part of that is managing our community composting project, which the Glendhu Station Compost Hub is a part of. And I'll just give you a bit of an overview as to how we got to there to date, I guess. Quite a brief overview, but yeah, obviously welcome any questions afterwards or as we go as well. Danielle, yeah, I'll get you to flick the screen. Thank you. So I thought I'd just start with some stats because we've got some pretty cool infographics that our design team have done up as well that we've included in our recent WMMP. Um, but yeah, so the most recent waste assessment we had done was in 2024, and what we found from that was that about quarter of all the waste that was going to landfill was made up of organics. So as you can see there, that was 13.2% of food scraps and 12.6% of green waste. And so on average, what that worked out to be is about 247 tonnes of material, of just organic material every single week. So yeah, quite a big chunk. Um, and then, oh, I went to change my slide. I don't have that one. Can you, yeah, flick it? Sorry, thanks, Danielle. Um, I'll change it on my screen so I can see my notes. And currently in the district, we have limited access to any sort of organic waste services. So we don't currently offer a curbside organics collection for our residents. And so as we can see from this chart, yeah, over half of the material that's going into our curbside red bins is, again, organic, so food scraps or green waste. And so, what our waste management and minimisation plan is seeking to do is to transition us towards a zero waste and circular economy future. And our latest waste management minimisation plan was adopted by Council in September, and in that we've set out some actions that will help us deliver on our objective for preventing and reducing organic waste. Um, and we do have a variety of services and community focused initiatives that we are supporting in the organic waste and food waste reduction space currently, and there is some work underway looking into the provision of a household curbside organic service for our residents, but it is still a little way down the line. And in addition to our waste management and minimisation plan, we also have in our climate and biodiversity plan setting out how our district will respond to climate change and building resilience there. And so part of that is the development of community composting, food growing solutions, and boosting local food resilience. So sort of going back to when we first applied for this funding. It was before my time, so may not have all the questions on sort of that historical side of things. But we did know of several groups in the district that were keen to develop new or expand their existing food waste reduction food waste reduction initiatives. And so it was with all of that, so looking at what we are sending to landfill and what opportunities there could be out there in our district that some of our community are already doing, that we submitted our expression of interest to the Ministry for the Environment's Waste Minimisation Fund. And then that was back in 2022, and we managed to secure some co-funding with them for the delivery of our community composting project. So next slide. Oh yeah, perfect. That is what we want. So the focus of this project is to support the establishment of the network of community composting hubs all across the district to help divert those food scraps and garden waste from landfill, and also turn into the beneficial resource for our community gardens, restoration projects and native plantings, and just provide that back to the community. And in addition to the diversion side of things, the hubs are also providing great opportunities for the community to participate in education and learning, and sort of raising that awareness around organic waste, and also allowing sort of that hands-on experience for composting and food growing and that sort of thing. The project as well is helping us improve our data and research into informing what the future for organic waste could look like in the district. And these hubs they've allowed us to sort of trial and test different methodologies and this decentralized composting model. We also we provided some information to some consultants recently that were commissioned by MFE to develop a case study around to examine how well the Waste Minimisation Fund and actually the Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfill Fund, but it's not part of this project, but it was wrapped into the same report, are delivering on their core purposes. And I'm happy to share a link to that report as well. It's available on the MFE website now. Next slide, please, Danielle. Okay, cool. So a bit more about the hubs. So yeah, like I said, it started off in 2022. And since then, we're now in year 3, but we've managed to secure 6 hubs. And over this time, our hubs have diverted over 1,000 tonnes of food and green waste, which is pretty incredible when you consider how small their operations are, really, in the big scheme of things. And they've also delivered more than 200 community learning opportunities and also supported local employment. But yeah, just so I thought I'd do a bit of a visual to show you where they are. The 2 that were sort of first off the ranks when we secured the funding with MFE was Zero Waste Glendhu. So that operates by e-bike collections from the local residents and businesses in the Glendhu township, and also collects from some of the film productions that end up out that way. And it's processed using a commercial composting machine. Wānaka, they've got their community garden with this food scraps drop-off point and utilising a variety of on-site composting methods. Then we've got Waste to Wilderness, so back over this side of the hill in Queenstown, They're operating a collection service for most of the hotels and many restaurants within Queenstown, and trialing some skip bin compost methodologies or skip post. Um, then more recently, we have got two more projects that have come on board and they're still in the planning and development stage, and that's the Wastebusters Compost Collect and the Millbrook Arrowtown composting facility, where they're going to be using a hot rock composter. And then last but not least, we've got the FreshLink Glendhu Station Composting Hub. And yeah, I'll probably hand over to Danielle now to sort of cover that off in a bit more detail.
Great. Thanks, Emma. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so let me think. So I was brought onto this project about almost 1.5, 2 years ago. Jesse from FreshLink, which is a local green grocer in Wānaka, his company found this grant through the QLDC and MFE. They applied for it. The greengrocers sort of established a system because they were already taking all of their organic waste out to a local farm here in the area, and sort of wanted to bring that above ground and get the conversation going in the community. And I had met Jesse through research that I had been doing in the food system space. So, just to preface, compost isn't actually my area of expertise. Food systems are more where I spend my time. But through a lot of conversation, Jesse sort of pushed and was like, "I think this is a great opportunity," and it really was. It's been really a phenomenal project to get on board with. So. The farm that we're collaborating with is Glendhu Station. It's about 15 minutes outside of Wānaka to the left of Lake Wānaka. And it's a lot greener today out there than when this image was taken. But this is the composting site. So we're actually composting. Our initial process started off where the farmer had offered up a silage pit lower down on the property. After doing sort of investing some time and funding into our resource consent, what came up was that it was going to be really expensive and quite a tedious process because we were located in a 100-year flood zone. And so, we sat down with the farmer and we looked at a map, we pulled up a map and we were like, is there anywhere else on the farm that you would be happy with us composting all of this organic waste? And what came up was this plot, which is an old airplane landing strip. And that little structure that you can see on the far left is a old fertilizer shed, which is where we've decided to start the composting operation. So, and then just looking at this image, those trees are still on the property, but long term, or well, currently actually, the farmer is starting to sort of barrier off this section with native species, and then the long-term goal would be to actually cut all of those trees down and hopefully chip them as part of the carbon source for the future of the operation. Another thing to note is we share this road leading towards the compost site with Bike Glendhu, which is another operation running on the farmer's property. So there's some traction coming past the operation, but the operation in and of itself is actually quite isolated because it's quite high up and hidden sort of in the hills away from the general public behind a farm gate. So this is what it looks like close up. Project, we landed on hot composting because it was the simplest approach, especially with the mindset of the different restaurants and greengrocers that we were working with in town, and the high turnover of employees that all of the businesses in Wānaka tend to have, which helps address the education component in terms of what can and can't go into your compost, and in which bins to use, because the initial process was worm farming. But the more folks we got on board and the more we were looking at expansion, the more sense it started to make to hot compost. So what we're doing is we've created two windrows on either side of these concrete bays. And once that leachate problem sort of disappears, then there's the opportunity to start building windrows to the right of the shed. So I guess here's sort of a better image of what it looks like as of, I think, last week. And what we're currently doing is we are inserting, so we've got a washdown station that's being put in and sprinklers that are going to be located on the top of these concrete pads. So for when it's really hot in the summer to keep these compost piles a little bit more moist. And then let me think. So, okay, yeah. So the way that, and then, okay, yeah, and then we've got drip irrigation that will water the windrows to the right of the shed. Okay, so this is what our operation looks like. We've got 4 of these trailers currently, and they've got 80-liter bins. And these were initially color coded for the worm farming, but because we've gone straight to hot composting, we've just gone single color for each trailer. And essentially, we leave one of these trailers outside of FreshLink. Their staff dispose of their organic waste into these bins. And then once every 2 to 3 weeks, a local landscaping company comes in, picks up this trailer, and takes it out to Glendhu Station. We've always got one empty trailer in rotation. So when they pick up the full trailer, they drop off the empty trailer. So there's never any disconnect between or staff having to wait to dispose of organic waste. And these trailers, yeah, they're pretty great. They've got brakes. They're quite, the traction on the trailer is easy and safe to get up and down. And the bins are they're heavy with the organic waste inside of them, but I'm still able to pull them off of the car and empty them. So we did keep that in mind when deciding on what size bins to purchase. And then, yeah, so let me think. So the estimates when I came onto the project were roughly 10 tons of waste were coming from FreshLink annually. Treble Cone, which is one of the ski resorts out here, was diverting over 5 tons. And then Velo Cafe, which is part of Bike Glendhu, it was averaging about 30 kg of food waste. I would say all of those numbers since weighing in every couple of months, and we've got a scale out there to weigh if we need to, is all those numbers are just a little bit higher. So I would say roughly 20 tons of organic waste are currently being diverted from landfill annually. And then I just wanted to talk about community involvement because this has been really incredible part of the project. So FreshLink Grocer, they were already, like I mentioned, diverting their organic waste to Glendhu Station. And they're the folks who applied for the grant. And currently nobody actually owns this operation. And that's sort of part of the next discussion of the project. Is there anybody in town that wants responsibility of the project? Could we potentially umbrella it and work or collaborate with Wānaka Wastebusters? You know, what does the future of the project look like? And then Glendhu Station, which is the farm or the station that we're currently composting on, this is probably one of our greatest opportunities for our project. Glendhu Station, the farm owner, John McRae, has just really generously offered up this land for free. And our relationship with him is essentially that he gets to use the compost in exchange for the land and to put back onto his land. And he's then got an informal relationship with Bike Glendhu, who we share a road with to get up to the compost operation. And they have a goal to plant, I think, 2,000 to 3,000 trees every year. And so a lot of that compost then gets used to plant those trees. Green Fox is the landscaping company that got involved. And really, that was just a phone call to a local landscaping company who really believes in what we're doing. And they've heavily subsidized their costs to be involved in this project. And they've created this really wonderful circular model where when they're pulling trees and plants out of other people's properties around town, they typically just divert them to John's property. And so John's just been planting all these trees that they would initially have taken out and potentially discarded of on his property. Then Mitre 10 has been, were approached at the very beginning of this project a year and a half ago, sort of, we didn't have any direction and we wanted to get their input if they wanted any involvement. And they were quite open and willing to be involved in any which way we needed, whether that was financially or if there was any equipment that we wanted to borrow or if there was anything they needed to purchase to get the community involved, any advertising we wanted to do. And really all that we've actually taken from what they've offered is a really big shed that we keep all of our tools and things in that they've donated to the project. But long term, if there was ever the goal of selling compost, they offered to take all of that compost and donate 100% of the profit back into the operation. So they've been really, really open to collaborating with us. And then obviously the Queenstown Lakes District Council, who's given us the initial $100,000 it's taken to establish this project. And then one of sort of our biggest obstacles in this project is the carbon source. And we have a great relationship with Delta, who's actually not up on the screen, but they're the company that takes care of all of the like telephone poles around town. And they often tend to have to cut branches and trees around these telephone poles down. And when they're in the area, they just dump all of the wood chip that they've processed that day on farm. So they've been really great recently. And then Upper Cut Firewood, I guess we approached them to see if they had any. Well, we heard sort of via the grapevine that they had a mulch that they weren't selling. And so I went out there and I asked, I asked the owner, what do they do with it? And I guess they're not selling it because it's a mindset from the community. It doesn't look like how people think mulch should look. So they're sitting over, I think, 800 cubes of mulch, and about every 3 or 4 months they're burning 55 cube to continue making space for it. And so with Upper Clutha Transport, who both of these folks have really great relationships with the farmer, they're diverting all of that wood chip onto the farmer's property instead of burning it. So yeah, so we've just had really great community involvement. A lot of people that want to support the project and are supporting the project in any which way they can, with whatever capacity they can. And then, yeah, I guess moving forward, our biggest problems are most likely going to be carbon and scaling the operation so that it's financially viable. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.